All right, a happy Friday night, especially if you are a New York Knicks fans. The Boston Celtics become Team 25 to enter the postseason. Hopefully, everyone is doing great out there. We're going to do a Celtics offseason video in a minute. You can read about the Celtics in on ESPN.com. Their article is up, gives you a look at certainly what to expect, what we can look ahead to, I guess, for Boston entering the offseason. Certainly, there's going to be a ton of questions here. I would say, certainly, when you win a championship, you want to defend it on your own terms. The loss of Jason Tatum certainly takes a big, certainly impacts a lot of things here, and it's him leaving the game on game four and him being carried off is kind of how I remember this Boston season this year. The inability to defend your championship because your best player has torn his Achilles. I can't believe I was going to tweet something and then I didn't want to get in a Twitter war because Twitter is the best place to get in arguments. I can't believe there are actually people accredited on um, that made a comment that Boston was, I don't want to say better off with Jaylen Brown than Jason Tatum, but Jaylen Brown plays a harder brand of basketball, whatever the heck that means. Golly geez, the state of sports media. I will say this regarding Boston. And I know people are saying, well, it was an embarrassment. They lost by 40. Listen, when you go on a road in a game six and you basically take the first punch and you can't get off the canvas, it's going to snowball and you're going to lose by 35, 40 points. Now let's talk about the Celtics offseason here. There are going to be a lot of things that are going to be dissected in the next months, a few months here. You are about to enter uncharted waters when it comes to your payroll. You look at where they are financially, where they are with the Apron, where they are with a new ownership group that's about to come in. I thought the only way that this roster stays together is if they get to an NBA Finals or if they win an NBA Finals. And trust me, change is coming here. They have two picks in the top 32. That's the good news, 28 and 32. The second is from Washington. Their free agents are Al Horford and Luke Cornett, Torrey Craig, JD Davidson's got a team option. Drew Peterson was on a two-way. Regarding Horford and Cornett, who certainly have value and were a big part of your front court, here's how the finances are going to impact Boston. For every $3 million you spend, so let's say if you bring back Horford and Cornett on a $3 million contract, it will cost an additional $25 million per person. So to bring both players back, it will cost you $50 million. You're going to have to sign somebody to your roster as far as from a minimum standpoint. But each guy will cost you $25 million each. Your payroll, where you are right now, and we put the graphic up, you are at let me pull it up here. You are at 231 in salary, and you have a projected tax penalty of 263. So you're almost at $500 million. That is not sustainable. Why is it $500 million? People want to ask. Why is it $263 million? Because year one of the Jason Tatum Supermax contract, in year one of the Derek White extension, and year one of Sam Hauser's extension are now kicking in. Now you couple that with and people are probably thinking, oh my God, is there another rule coming with the CBA? Yeah, there is. You couple that with a set of new rules, tax bracket rules that are going to come into effect and are going to severely impact teams who are a repeater tax team. In the case of the Boston Celtics, they are a repeater tax team. This is their 4 years in a row as far as being in a tax. how it impacts the Celtics basically is everything gets doubled. So if you are, we'll put a bracket up tomorrow. We're not going to do it today. Let's say you're in this tier 4 bracket with your um, between 11.4 and $17 million over. It costs you $5.5 million for every dollar you're over. It is a whopper. It basically, as we mentioned, the Cornette and Horford number, and then there's the opposite, where if you traded Sam Hauser, it would save you $80 million. It's not sustainable. It really isn't. I mean, you finished the season over the second apron. Your 2030 second pick is frozen. If you finish the next year over the second apron, your 2033 pick will become frozen. You're entering the territory of basically your pick is going to move back in the first round. You're not there yet, but you're getting there close. So here's what we're looking at here. And your owner, not your new one, Wick Grossbeck, basically came out and said it's not sustainable to be in the second apron. You know, it really is. And it's not the luxury tax. It's basically the roster restriction rules. Of course, the luxury tax plays into it because the more money you spend, the more that you're going to go into over the apron here. So as you know, and you went through it during the regular season and last year, Celtics fans, the inability to aggregate contracts, the inability to combine contracts, right? Put two together, the inability to use more than 100% of the traded player exception. That means taking back more money. The inability to send out cash in a trade. The inability to use a pre-existing trade exception. That trade exception you created from the Jaden Springer trade that's no longer available for you. The inability to sign a player that was waived that had a pre-existing salary of $14.1 million. Your, as I mentioned, your pick, if you're over next year, will become frozen. Your pick in 2032 is already frozen. The rules, these are all the rules we know that basically forced the Clippers to let Paul George walk and Denver to let Kentavious Caldwell-Pope walk. You are in that apron territory, and you're not just over it, you're buried in it. You're about $23-24 million over that second apron. So here's what you're looking at. Okay, we talked about the finances, 231 in salary, 263 in tax penalty. 3 different scenarios. This is coming from me. I'm not in Brad Stevens' office right now. There are 3 different scenarios that you're going to be looking at this offseason. The first, and more unlikely, okay, is that you basically keep this thing intact. You add your 2 picks, 28 and 32, and you roll back this same group. And you embrace paying a $500 million payroll. Now you've got to make a decision on Horford and Cornette. Now with Tatum out, your front court is awfully thin here. As we mentioned, the conservative approach should be met with caution. Basically, will cost you $50 million additional. So basically, that 263 number goes to 515-ish. 315, excuse me. So your roster now goes up to, man, it is high. Oh my God, it's like 550. So that's option 1. Basically, the conservative, we basically are in a holding pattern. We wait for Tatum to get back in 2026, likely, and we compete for a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. Okay. Under the old CBA, you could do that. I don't think you could do it under this one. Option 2. This is the cost-cutting option here. This is where you're basically shedding salary. You could go either the Kristaps Porzingis option. This is a little bit more challenging, where you're trying to shed his $31 million expiring contract. Problem is, there's only team out there that has cap space is the Brooklyn Nets. It's hard to see Brooklyn taking that back unless they're incentivized. I don't think they would do it for 28 and 32 because Brooklyn already has 5 draft picks this year. The other option is certainly basically a combination of Hauser, Holiday, and basically you just start chipping away as far as getting that number down. So example, maybe you trade Porzingis for a $22 million player, and then you take the other two, and you basically trade them for $15 million less than salary. I'm just spitballing here. And you basically chip away as far as how you get under that number. I don't see a plan where you basically just dump $24 million in salary to somebody just because of where we are with the economics of this offseason and getting under in one full swoop. It might be multiple separate moves to get you under, whether it be taking back, like as I said, if you send out 30, maybe you're taking back 22. If you send out a 10, maybe you can drop Hauser if you want. I mean, still on a good contract into somebody's trade exception. So there is mechanisms if you want to go out and do that as far as the cost cutting measure. Here's the third one. This is a little bit more drastic. Okay. We call this the gap year reset option. What does the gap year reset option mean? It's basically you're going to wait for Tatum to get back. You're going to build the roster with Tatum and Derek White. You are going to look at trade suitors for Jaylen Brown, and you are going to do a full reset. It's basically, someone made a great example and analogy of this. It's basically, I don't want to compare it to what happened with the Bulls, and because Chicago's not in that era as far as when Chicago won their first 3 championships, and then Jordan takes a hiatus and he goes to play baseball, and they basically retool the roster around Jordan, Pippen. You basically have a different group of guys, but you still have somewhat of your core guys. That is the reset option where you're basically punting away next season, and you are probably competing for a back end lottery play-in spot. But you're basically cashing in Jaylen Brown, who has 4 years left on his contract. 4 years left on. I don't think he has 285. Oops, I gotta lower that number down. 4 years left on his contract. That's your reset option, where it's basically it's White, Tatum, who's injured, looking at trade suitors for Brown, Holiday, Porzingis, and you're basically using your first round draft pick in a loaded draft, and hopefully you catch lightning in a bottle like Dallas just did with Cooper Flag. So those are your type of options that you're looking at if you're Boston. Your extension candidate, I don't see any extensions this offseason. Certainly with Porzingis, Horford, and Jordan Walsh are all eligible. I don't see that happening at all. Your team needs are certainly front court depth. That is a major priority with Tatum out and the possibility of losing Horford and Cornette. Pulling up this Boston article. Sorry, kids. And then your draft assets. You have 5 of their own first round picks in the next 7 years. Why only 5? Because one of them is frozen. You owe 1 in 2029. That goes to either Portland or Washington. The maximum that you can trade is 1 first. Here's the reason why. You can trade 2026 or 2027. Remember, you can't trade back-to-back years. 2032 becomes frozen. You owe 1 in 29. It's all stagnated. You can't trade in 31 because 32 is frozen, right? So it's just the inability to trade picks become extremely difficult as far as what you have to offer in a deal here. That is it for Boston. It's not great. But congrats. I mean, you got a championship, and I think that's important. You'll always have your championship, and that is important here. So there are decisions that are coming in Boston, and we wait and see what happens next. Take care. Wanna try to boast at what I look like. How do I pull up long range? Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's NBA on ESPN.